In today's lesson, I'm going to show you how to maximize your vocabulary and how to practice to improve as an improviser. Along the way, I'll also show you some great bluesy bebop lines. My name is Jack Ruch. Welcome to my channel. Let's get into it. So for today's lesson, I'm going to walk you through a line that I would play over a very common chord progression. And what we're going to do is take this longer line and break it down into 3 shorter phrases. This way we can see what's going on in the line, understand it, but we can also start substituting in other phrases to create new lines. This is the way I think about improvising. And this is the way I practice improvising. A lot of people think improvising is creating new things right off the top of your head. But in fact, most of the time, it's just stringing together things that you've played a million times, things that you've practiced in new and different ways. So to start out, I'm going to walk you through the chord progression we're going to be playing over. This is a very basic 3-6-2-5-1 progression in the key of G major. So here's the chords. All right, so now that we've established the chord progression, we have a little bit of context to what we're going to be playing over. Now I'm going to play you the first version of this line. Now this is sort of a bebop blues-inspired line that really nicely outlines the chords. Most of the stuff that we're playing is notes right out of these chords. Now, like with all my lessons, if you're a visual learner who wants to see things written out on the page, all the tabs and notation for this lesson and all my other lessons are available over on my Patreon page. So now, along to the backing track, here's the first line we're going to start with. All right, so now that we've established a phrase, we can break this apart and start to see what's going on here. And, I encourage you guys, if you're new to this type of playing and you're trying to figure this stuff out, check out the little settings wheel down in the corner of your YouTube viewing screen. You can always adjust the playback speed and slow it down to 3/4 speed or half speed. That's what I do a lot when I'm trying to learn things by ear that maybe are new sounds or phrases that happen really quickly and I want to slow them down. So I'm going to move through these phrases fairly quickly because we've got a lot to cover in this lesson, but feel free to rewind, pause, slow things down to learn at your own pace. So this opening lick, the first version of this lick, starts with outlining this B minor 7 chord. Right, all notes right out of that chord tones, right? Then we walk down sort of a scale phrase, so kind of going up an arpeggio and then down a scale. And then right here is sort of what I'm going to call the middle part of this line. Right, and then we come down to the ending part. So that's sort of how I'm just dissecting this phrase, right? The first part, right? Then the second part, and then the third part. So now what I want to do is try changing one of these sections of the line. Keep the opening phrase the same, keep the ending phrase the same, and change the middle part. And so what we're going to do is we're going to end up substituting all these different parts of this line to create a whole bunch of different variations on a line. And this is the kind of thing you can do with vocabulary that you have as you're transcribing things, as you're learning new little bits and pieces of how to tie together lines and solos. You can start messing around with the order of things. You can do this with pentatonic blues phrases that you're learning, or anything that you're working on. Like I always say, it's good to have a song or a chord progression, something to give you some context to practice to. But then taking a longer phrase like this, maybe something you've transcribed, and go, well, I really like that. How can I change this and modify it? And this is the kind of stuff that really pays off in dividends when it comes to improvising, because you can start to get to a place where you can do this on the fly, and it doesn't sound like you're playing note for note the same phrases all the time. So what we're going to do with this line, I'll play it again. We're going to change the middle part. So now I'm going to do this. So a very subtle change, using a lot of the same notes, but it created a new feel, it created new phrasing, and it certainly feels different under the hands, right? Right, I substituted that little kind of bebop phrase over that section of the chord progression. So now we've taken this thing from to this new version. So now let's go ahead and change the final segment of the phrase. Instead of this, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're actually going to play sort of hinting at a little bit of an altered sound over this D7 chord using the sharp 9 and flat 9. So that sounds like this. I'm going to play the original line and just change the third little phrase. So. Right, so now we've created this totally different sounding phrase, taking, in my case, existing vocabulary. This is stuff that I play and stuff that I use. Now, this stuff might be new to you, so this may be new vocabulary for you to learn. But the whole idea here is more the method of how to work on this stuff and how to practice. So you can take this same method and this same sort of idea and tie it into licks and solos that you're already playing. See how different licks that you're playing tie together with other things that you know, so that you can actually sort of work out pathways to get through things that can then help you in the moment when you're improvising, when you're playing with your buddies, or playing on a gig, or recording something, right? So now we're going to do one final little variation, and we're going to change the first part of the phrase. So instead of this, we're going to do a little variation on that. Right, so it's going to be like this. So now we've got all these possible variations on this original line. We can play the original line, or we can change the first little phrase and play the back half or the back 2/3 sort of the original way. We can change the middle phrase, or we can change the end phrase, or we can do any combination of that. We literally have a whole bunch of different possibilities of what we can do with this, right? So I can kind of play through them now. Like, here's the original phrase. Now here's changing the middle section of that phrase. Now here's changing just the ending of the original phrase. All right, now here's changing just the beginning of that phrase. And now here's changing all three phrases. Right, so we've got a whole bunch of different variations on this original line just by breaking it apart and substituting things in that you play. So when I'm transcribing stuff, whether it's, Wes Montgomery or Grant Green, or even blues guys like Freddie King or Albert Collins, I'm always thinking about their phrases they play as little pieces that can be tied together with other things. And a lot of times I'll learn a line and then immediately start breaking it apart and seeing how it fits together with other stuff, other vocabulary that I have. This is part of how you start to discover your own sound, but it's also how you can maximize your vocabulary to get the most out of it so that you can solo for a long time or improvise for a long time without running out of ideas and without having to repeat the same lines note for note over and over and over again. So, this type of chord progression, this 3-6-2-5-1 thing, pops up in a lot of tunes, a lot of jazz standards and things like that. But you can also substitute this in a blues. If you're playing sort of a swing blues or a jazz blues in the key of G, and you're playing this kind of thing. Right, in that section after the 4 chord, you can substitute in that 3-6-2-5-1 thing. So I'm going to play now over a little blues backing track, kind of that, relaxed swing feel. And I'm just going to string together some ideas. I'm going to improvise, but I'm going to use in that section these phrases that we've talked about and just string them together in different ways so that you can hear how I would apply this kind of technique. And you can hear how it, these phrases are going to sound similar. Certain things are going to be the same because I'm obviously demonstrating exactly these phrases that we've played. But you'll hear how and you'll see how, it changes enough that, I'm kind of getting the most out of these lines that I've practiced. right, so hopefully this is a helpful little insight into how to work on improvising. This is something I encourage you to do with your own playing. And it really, I'm talking kind of about a jazz thing here, but really this goes for any style you're playing. If you're playing country or bluegrass or heavy metal or whatever, it's kind of the same idea if you want to be free to improvise things off the top of your head. You've got to work on these phrases and work on your lines to get proficient at them and get them under your fingers. But then when it comes time to play, you want to have that freedom to tie them together in new and creative ways. So I encourage you to kind of take this method and run with it and do your own thing. If you're interested in the tabs and notation for these specific lines or the solo that I played, that's all going to be over on my Patreon page. The link is down in the description. I've got a new course coming out next weekend. It's going to be on sale. It's a melodic soloing course. It's going to talk about a lot of these types of concepts of how to string together melodies, how to solo using chord tones. So keep an eye out for that. I'll be posting more about that later this week. But until next time, happy practicing and take care.